Welcome to NAIOP Solution Series program titled Tales from Canada, Retailing is Different Up North. My name is Sandy Hudson. The Solution Series programs are available at no cost. These mini webinars run less than 30 minutes, and our goal is to provide you with some quick tips and insights, all types of strategies and tactics to help you succeed in today's business environment. Do you have a suggestion for a topic? Please email us at solutions@naiop.org to let us know what topics you would like to hear about in future programs. Please advance to the next slide. NAIOP has produced the popular Solution Series programs for 3 years. Did you miss one of our informative topics? The archives of these programs are available to NAIOP members at no cost through the on-demand bookstore. Examples of past programs are listed on the current slide. Our topics cover niche development, finance, marketing, and more. Visit the NAIOP website at www.naiop.org/Solution Series for links to the archives. Next slide, please. And now let's get on with our program. With us today is Brian Fleener, Vice President of Retail Stores Development with Mulvaney G2. In this capacity, Brian leads the development of the retail stores market sector and design strategy and offers clients a global perspective on their retail development plans. He has been the main point of contact for many of their clients during the past 2 decades, nurturing long-held partnerships with clients such as Target, Nike, Fred Meyer, the Kroger Company, and Urban Outfitters. He has earned a reputation as a problem solver who brings solid recommendations and technical solutions to everything he touches. Welcome, Brian. Thanks for being with us today.
Sandy, thank you for that gracious introduction. You know, despite the many similarities between the U.S. and Canada, retailing and retail development is different up north. Our wealthy neighbor holds great development potential, but it must be approached the right way to achieve long-term success. Mulvaney G2 Architecture has been working with Fortune 100 retailers such as Costco Wholesale, Nike, Target, Safeway, Urban Outfitters, and Zoomies since 1985, and we've learned a lot of things along the way. Target Corporation is in a big push right now, and I've had some very recent and relevant experience that I hope to share. Today I'll be discussing some specific things that Mulvaney G2 Architecture has done to streamline the development process, partner with retailers and retail brands, and work with the development community to help retailers in implementing store design strategies, navigating and streamlining the permitting process, developing designs to be more relevant to Canadian customers, and understanding the business culture in Canada. So let's go ahead and get started with culture, since the differences up in Canada might be greater than you think. As with here, there are regional differences and biases from province to province. British Columbia, the West, is about the loyalists and their temperament in that regard. They're very proud of their heritage, and at times you have a feeling that they're actually ruled by the Queen. They're very attentive to protocol and manners, and this will manifest itself in different ways. But as you go through the development cycle, starting with entitlements, remember protocol. Remember protocol as it's very important to their culture and who they are. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the prairies, well, they're less populated. And with that, you'll find that their culture is one of closeness, one where everybody knows each other. They're the working class, and their culture is one of solid and hard work ethic. And they're going to want to see that, you know, in their partners, is you want it to reflect who you are in their culture. Their culture is very straightforward, no frills. They're kind of like our Midwesterners here in the States. Ontario is the gateway to Canada. Metropolitan, sophisticated. You know, Toronto is very much like New York City. However, the entitlement process probably isn't as stringent as New York City, but it is difficult. They're the most populated province. They do have the largest economy, and their economy is just booming right now. Most retail ideas start their brands, and if they're deemed successful, they're going to move forward and expand in other regions. But Toronto's really a bellwether of how their brand is received, and that's what we found. Now, Quebec, French Canada, this culture is fiercely independent. You really need to understand that as you're approaching them. If anyone out there has read the book Ecotopia, where California secedes from the U.S. and becomes its own country, well, this is very similar to Quebec. They are very independent. They're predominantly French-speaking population. The Quebecans dislike outsiders working in their province until you prove your value. Domineering approach definitely will not work here. And they're the second largest economy right behind Ontario. Now, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, Labrador, what we call the Maritimes, has its own very distinct culture. They're no-nonsense, yet self-effacing people that you really have to understand what's important to them, because maybe your development ideas or the help you need in development isn't that important, especially during hunting season. So, you know, get in there and understand how they're wired, and you'll be just fine. But just understand that business is the most important thing in the world. In general, Canadians welcome U.S. retailers and the jobs that they bring. The people in Canada are just very nice people. I mean, they're super helpful. They really enjoy a relationship, and they want to take the time to have that relationship. Just a quick example, I've called professional organizations up there where I'm trying to work on a licensure thing. And in the States, you get somebody who's very bureaucratic, and your name is a number. But what's very interesting about Canada is that your name isn't a number. Your name is a person, and that's really important to them. And so resonate with that and grow with that, and help that build your relationship. They don't have a cultural prejudice against big box retailers or mass merchandisers. Canadians will work with Americans, but they do want to get to know you. There's this term called phoning it in. You do not want to be coined as the person that phoned it in. Canadians want that personal relationship, and they want to feel like you're making an effort, not just coming up to Canada and taking jobs away from them. Moving into real estate, there is assistance in development fees up there. Incentives can be difficult to find on your own via websites or conventional research. It would really be helpful if you had a local consultant up there, or a firm that you worked with up there, or had some type of local connection to really start to dig in and find those incentives that are out there. Ontario and Quebec are usually at the front end of permitting trends and norms, and from there they're going to spread across the rest of Canada, so the other provinces are kind of looking to Ontario specifically for those norms. Many incentives lie with utilities, not with agencies, so remember to reach out to the different utilities. The way we do it is we have a group inside of MG2, and we call it the cost management. More than just cost management, they actually have developed relationships over the last several years, and relationships with these utilities and relationships with manufacturers up there to find rebates. And I would recommend that with you as well. So, you know, find some people that you can dedicate to your development period, and let them just start to create those relationships, and it's going to pay huge dividends for you. Government assistance like tax abatement for improvements, incentives for developers more often are available in larger cities, somewhat like the States, in Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, and the surrounding areas. And another thing to remember is that the incentives are by province. They're not, it's not like a national federal program like we have several federal programs here in the United States. Incentives exist around energy use, waste management, electrical use, and some of the similar things that we find down here. Like many jurisdictions in the States, there are incentives for green building practices. If you can show energy efficiency, there are incentives out there to be cashed in on. Oftentimes, it's going to require that the owner or the person developing that product pay a bit more upfront to maybe get a more efficient HVAC piece of equipment or something like that. But you pay a little bit up front. You're not only going to get the rebate, but you're going to find those long-term savings in energy. Development fees are similar to the U.S. Additional and more complicated fees are going to be found in the large metro areas. Interestingly enough, small suburban areas typically ask for a percentage of construction costs fee, and it's pretty simple like that. In the real estate area, talking a little bit about repositioning existing properties versus going out and doing what you call cornfield development, or just developing new space. Restrictions in many cities across Canada have put commercial space limits on malls. So it's not like they can just keep developing FAR. You know, they're going to pull back on that. There are only 2 malls have been built in Canada since 1989. So getting into an existing vacant space in a mall probably is going to be a little more realistic and easier than just ground up. An example of this is Target Corporation going in and buying out over 200 leases from a retailer, Zellers. They were able to go in there, and now they're repositioning those locations. But what made it really simple is by finding that large group of stores to buy out, they're able to reposition those existing properties into what Target's brand is in a very quick way. And so that may be something and an avenue for you to look at. Added advantage of retrofitting existing properties is actually the opportunity to bring sustainable features in, since you're actually reusing the building. You know, green materials, improved efficiency on equipment, and etc. And on leases, just a short little thing about co-tenancy. They are sophisticated in co-tenancy, as sophisticated as we are here in the United States. So, you know, when you're looking at leases and understanding them, just know that if you're finding that they're not understanding, I think they might be understanding and using that as a tactic. So moving along to permitting and entitlements, the political process, and project approval, what we've really found is that it's essential to meet with the jurisdictions early. The bureaucracies are generally very manageable and down to earth, but you really need to get to know them first. To get through the process successfully, you have to create that relationship and get to know them and explain what your goals are. You know, once they understand what your goals are, they're actually going to help you figure out how to work with the existing rules to meet your goals. And, you know, to me, this is a large differentiator from working in jurisdictions in the United States where, you know, the rules are rules to stop you from doing things. Once you explain what you are, I'll reiterate that again. Once you explain what your project goals are, they are really there to help you. Permitting panels are willing to talk through issues, and they're willing to be educated and understand. As long as design requirements are met, they're willing to hear about other solutions like materials and other things like that that achieve the same goal, and it may be a way of keeping costs low for your clients and the end users building them. Creating relationships does take time, but you need to take that time to build a rapport. This can sometimes lengthen the process, but in the long run, it's really going to pay dividends and save you money and save you time. And you're going to create new friends up there. The culture, explaining the culture and concept of who you are, who your retail client is going in up there is pretty important. And I'll just give you an example of that. You know, working with Target Corporation, they have a culture of fast, fun, and friendly. And once I explained that to the jurisdictions and told them that some of their drivers are around merchandising plans, and that may be why we have to have the entry here or we need to have the loading dock there, they understand it, and there's very quick buy-in. Processes do vary widely, so do your homework. No one way is the right way necessarily. Some require a full extent of design review, public meetings, city council meetings, approval period. Other jurisdictions only need to see preliminary drawings. Most jurisdictions have a community organization. Oftentimes they'll have to present at discretionary hearings. I've run into some very nice people at these hearings, and, you know, just listening to them and telling them what your goals are really helps. An example would be, I was just up in St. George a couple of weeks ago, and there was one lady on the design review panel that, you know, she liked the design well enough, but what she wanted to share wasn't really about the design. she wanted me to understand that in the wintertime, around 3 o'clock, it gets pretty dark up there, and we might want to look at the actual lighting that we have, and, you know, are we addressing it in a way that's really going to help exhibit our brand? And so, you know, it was pretty outgoing of her to say something like that. The level of detail required for most U.S. jurisdictions is generally the same amount of detail that's going to be required up in Canada. Down is that there are enough code differences that are unique to Canada that many of the retailers that we work with have developed actual Canada or Canadian prototype, and it just streamlines the development process. Just a side note, and you could probably guess this, but the documents in Quebec will need to be in French. Just flipping into design, high retail design is the norm up there. As an example, as you go into the different larger cities, they have just done a bang-up job with grocery store chains and design, and really looking at the exterior, and while maintaining their own brand, really have a way of having to them, whether it's wood or whether it's concrete or whether it's a metal panel. You know, they just have a way of really looking at design, and so be ready for that. Be ready for doing something that is maybe a little unnormal for how you would develop in the States. Most jurisdictions are flexible, though, as long as the basic requirements are met. And, you know, we've been very successful in collaborating with jurisdictions. Be prepared to present options and various solutions, once again, explaining what your goals are. And opportunities exist to satisfy codes while also keeping costs low for clients. So be prepared to actually state your case, and don't be afraid to do that. I was working in a jurisdiction recently in northern BC, and they have what's called the Wood First Initiative. And what they really wanted was to know that we were going to use wood, natural wood, in the design and to show that off. And so just be attentive to it. Moving into construction, just a couple quick points going across the country once again, if you will, starting in the east. Conventional steel and pre-engineered metal buildings are very popular. Precast walls are popular. They're put to a rack. They're well insulated, which is good for a shorter building season. Or in the east, what we've been doing up there is cast in place insulated stem wall systems. It's pretty quick to go in, despite what you may think, and it's been used very successfully on Costco stores. So if Costco's doing it, there must be something right about it, right? Conventional steel buildings with ballasted roofs are very popular up there in the east. Pre-engineered systems are getting more popular, but they're still not the norm. So, you know, in the east, you might find a labor pool that's not as familiar of working in that building technique. Due to the colder climate in the east, construction schedules are often longer due to ground conditions that require piles or soil stabilization. So be ready to put that into your scheduling. Timing is essential in the frozen north, so make sure your building activities match appropriate building seasons and cycles. Insulated foundation wall systems are our preferred approach now, and they're best for below freezing temperatures, techniques we've considered for northern U.S., as a matter of fact. And then understanding regional dirt issues up there with the alluvial clay in the prairies, groundwater that's barely below the surface. You know, in urban areas, contaminated soils are a possibility, so, you know, make sure you do your due diligence in soils reports. Buried concrete pipes with asbestos has been found, so, you know, you really need to be careful in the urban areas. Now moving out to the west, pre-engineered systems are fairly popular, so that's, you know, if you're using that technique, you just know that the west is a little more popular, and the conditions aren't as harsh as in the east. Specific construction suggestions might be things like construction costs do vary widely by province, and weather plays a major role up there. Just understand that. If sites need to be piled, do it when the ground is frozen. This prevents equipment problems. And we've actually lost large equipment when the spring thaw occurs and they just start to sink. Install deep utility lines for things like storm drainage, sewer, water, etc. Before the frost hits. The ground needs to be rippable to prevent delays and increased costs. Import granular fill or lime or cement-treated soil to provide a workable surface in the spring. Schedule pavement operations before mid-October. For building facades, use materials that can be installed in winter and don't require heat, possibly as a tactic. Precast panels are a good bet there. This is interesting that what we found is that precast can actually be the same price as masonry in some of the province, so be on the look for that. And also remember that in Independence Place, they have construction holidays in July and December, so make sure you work that into your schedule. So just a few points in closing, and maybe to reiterate a couple of the points. Achieving success in retailing and retail development in Canada begins with good communication. Canadians in general place a premium on one-to-one connections, so taking the time to develop a strong relationships is going to pay off in the long term, I guarantee it. You won't get far just phoning it in or trying to get things done from afar only. Expect to make multiple trips and to spend time getting to know the developers, the retailers, the planners, the consultants, the builders, and others involved in the process. And this phase time will pay benefits, and you'll learn that the Canadians are willing to work with those who put in the time to understand their perspective and process. In my experience, I found them to be willing to negotiate, be flexible, and accommodating. Once you get to know each other and understand our mutual business needs. Please contact me if you have any questions about this presentation, whether you're engineer, architect, builder, owner. In addition to our work in Canada, MG2 has completed projects and worked with retailers and other partners around the world from our offices in Bellevue, Portland, Irvine, Washington, D.C., and Shanghai. Thank you very much for your time.
Brian, thanks for a great presentation and discussing how retail development in Canada differs from the U.S. Our next Solution Series program on the development model for the Middle Ring suburbs will be available on May 22nd. Watch your email for NAIOP source or corporate newsletter for the program link. Thank you for listening to our session and have a good day.